Hey friends! Tonight I want to talk about the pros and cons of being an artist. And I'm not an amazing artist actually. I have just picked it up about the past, maybe 6 years ago. I started taking art lessons from a lady that's amazing at art. And she would have me come to her home and then teach me, especially painting. And recently I've picked up drawing. So I can't say that I'm like a professional painter or drawer, but I do love art. And I painted multiple murals, and I've drawn portraits and a few things like that. So anyways, those are a few things I've done, but I've decided to write the pros and cons and then do a video blog about that. So number one, the pro for being an artist is I think it's very relaxing. Even though at first it might be a little frustrating to learn how to get things to look how you want them to, I think it's just relaxing when you finally get in the groove and you start reaching the goals and potential that you had in mind, and putting your thoughts down on a piece of paper. It just is very soothing. And again, I'm like not professional, but for me it's a very good thing to do at the end of the day. As well as coloring. So if you're not an artist like drawing or whatever, coloring can be very soothing. A con is it requires art supplies unless you do it on an app, which is always nice. But you have to store that art supplies and buy art supplies. And then if you have kids, you have to keep those art supplies out of reach. I like acrylic paints because I don't have to worry about like turpentine and different oil paints that could hurt the kids. So that's something for me and something to keep in mind when painting. But the con to that is some art supplies can be very dangerous to children as well as yourself. Another pro for me is it's so fun to see my kids light up and look at my art. Like in the mornings, I'll put like something I drew or colored on the fridge, and they just get super excited to see what I have accomplished while they were in bed. So it's really fun as a family to see what we can achieve. And I think it also inspires. It's like a pro to inspire your kids to do something that's hard, because art for me was not something that came easily and naturally. My mom's a really good artist and I'm not, but because I practiced, I've become better at it. And I think that's a good lesson for kids to learn. Even though something is hard, we can keep pushing through until we're able to accomplish that. So that's a big pro for me as far as art goes. Another con for art is it can be really messy and not turn out how you want it. Like, I don't know how many like canvases I've started on and it just looks awful, or things I've drawn with pencil and it looks like, especially animals, I cannot do animals. They look like little stick figures with like 6 legs. I don't even know. I can't do it. I mean, practice makes perfect, but I am not accomplished in those things yet. So those are a few pros and cons for art, what I've thought of. I think something that my mom would always tell me, a con for her, sorry, my eye, is that she would get really frustrated and depressed. So that's something to watch out for if your moods, because she's a perfectionist with her art. And because she was a perfectionist, if it wasn't 100% perfect, she'd get really angry. And then she said she felt like she was like turning her mood on everyone else. And so just watch out for that, I guess, if that's something that you tend to do. For me, I'm the opposite. I'm like very, oh, this is nice. Unless, I guess, my kids are right there climbing on top of me, then it can be kind of frustrating. So I guess the environment is a big thing for a pro and con. Another con is expensive. Like I was talking to someone I clean for, and he was telling me about his art, and he's a really good artist. He's a watercolor painter, and he was telling me like the price of watercolors, like the really nice watercolors, and they're really expensive. And I was like, oh my gosh, I would not be able to afford that, especially this time. So that's something to keep in mind, is maybe you have to start cheaper because some art supplies are very expensive. So there's a few pros and cons. If you have any comments or pros and cons that you've found with art, like maybe it's as simple as it's a con to draw in pen because it doesn't really erase and it's hard to cover up. So just throw us out there, pros and cons of doing your artwork, and so we can build up on our art pros and con list. Check out our website, prosandcons.com, for more pros and cons. Have a good night. See ya. Bye.